what's up, thinkers? This is LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Soaring Green Mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Friday, August 4th, 2017. Yeah, I just had to get a used headset here. You may hear some little bit more music background. It'll be a little bit mellow. A little coffee house radio in the back. However, I am at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1, along the beautiful New River of Fort Lauderdale. And it's actually in the southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. See the jail on one end, you see the yacht club on the other. Support the mom and pop shops. If you're tired of big corporations, come on down here. There'll be more friendlier folks, neighbors, and people that explore the river, and bring your dog and cats as well. Ooh, okay, so what is actually happening is looks like the lamestream news. I want to talk about the big scandal still. A little more focusing on Donald Trump and the Russian ties, which has been proven irrelevant if you've been doing your homework. The Seth Rich case. It's beneficial that according to WikiLeaks, he was a DNC leaker. So the whole thing with the Russian ties is null and void. Flush it down the toilet. If you still believe that, then you're a bunch of damn fools. Plain and simple. And you're talking to a guy who's not a Trump worshiper either. Alright? Well, speaking of a bigger issue, we're going to be talking about dumbed down Deputy Wasserman Schultz. Yep. I call her that. And she did an exclusive interview with the Sun Sentinel on his arrest, Imran Awan. And this is by Anthony Mann. Came out last night actually, 7:15 p.m. As it reads here, Congresswoman Deputy Wasserman Schultz defiantly stands by her decision to keep an information technology aide on her payroll for 6 months after he was banned from the House network and fired by other members of Congress. I believe I did the right thing and I would do it again, Wasserman Schultz said Thursday in an exclusive interview with the Sun Sentinel. There are times when you can't be afraid to stand alone and you have to stand up for what's right. It would have been easier for me to just fire him. The Western Democrat did fire Imran Awan last week after he was arrested on bank fraud charges at an airport while trying to leave the country. As former Democratic National Committee Chairwoman, Wasserman Schultz is the most prominent Democrat who employed Awan. Her decision to keep employing Awan has been under fire from her Democratic primary challengers, Republicans, and multiple conservative websites. They've suggested Wasserman Schultz is hiding something, and the Awan matter is much more serious than she's letting on. His arrest, the congressman said, had nothing to do with the month-long investigation of Awan as an IT worker for a variety of members of Congress. An FBI affidavit filed with criminal complaint said Awan and his wife claimed a property used as security home equity line of credit was a principal residence when it was, in fact, a rental property, Wasserman Schultz said. There hasn't been any evidence presented that he's done anything wrong involving his work for Congress. And she said she believed he may have been put under scrutiny because of his religious faith. Awan is Muslim. Interesting, yeah. Awan and his wife and brothers worked for years for various members of Congress, including Wasserman Schultz. He was a so-called shared employee, with each office paying a part-time salary. According to a lot of reports, $165,000 a year for one gentleman, part-time, 20 years old. Think about that. I posted that on Stephen Molyneux's video about what the IT scandals. You should look it up. You'd be surprised based on all the reports from Politico and so forth. In February, Wasserman Schultz said chief of staff or members of Congress were told that Awan was under investigation. His access to the House network was suspended. House payroll records show that multiple members of Congress terminated Awan quickly early in February. Instead of firing him, Wasserman Schultz said her office worked with the House Chief Administration Officer to develop a job description that would allow him to continue to do work. Until such time there were other charges brought, or we had some evidence that there was something that was produced that warranted further action. Even without access to the IT network, Wasserman Schultz said, there are plenty of technological issues that an IT person can assist with. He didn't have access to the network, but he was able to give us guidance and advice and troubleshoot on a wide variety of other technological issues. IT isn't limited to computer network issues, she said. It includes phones, printers, the website, and helping people with software. I had grave concerns about his due process rights being violated, she said. When their investigation was reviewed with me, I was presented with no evidence of anything that they were being investigated for. And so that, in me, gave me great concern that his due process rights were being violated. That there were racial and ethnic profiling concerns that I had, she said. Wasserman Schultz said the chief of staff were told that Awan and his family members were having their access to the House IT network cut off because they were under investigation for procurement violations and data transfer violations. Wasserman Schultz said from that she has been able to discern the data transfer issue doesn't involve anything sinister. A law enforcement officer familiar with the case said after Awan's arrest there was no evidence of anything beyond the mortgage fraud for which he was charged and no indication of intelligence or national security implications. Because this is a pending case, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington said it wouldn't have any comment beyond the federal complaint. Instead, Wasserman Schultz said it involved the transferring data outside the secure network, which I think the amount use of apps that the House didn't find compliant with our security requirements. An example, she said, is the storage device Dropbox, which allows people to store documents and other images to share them with others. Wasserman Schultz says she believes other IT employees engaged in the same kind of data movement as Awan but aren't being investigated. Wasserman Schultz said didn't have access to any classified information. She and other members of Congress aren't allowed to store classified information in their offices and on their computers. When they did not go secure location to receive classified information, the members of Congress aren't allowed to bring any kind of electronics. Wasserman Schultz even has to leave her Fitbit fitness tracker outside. And aren't allowed to leave the room with any written notices. In 2006, Awan was paid $20,000 by Wasserman Schultz. In 2017, he was paid about $7,800 from the beginning of the year until his July 25th termination. His salary rate didn't change while his duties changed, spokesman Dave Darman said. Wasserman Schultz said he hired Awan. She went to Congress in 2005 as a recommendation of the U.S. Representative Robert Wexler, a Democrat from Palm Beach County. She said he worked in various offices as needed. Wasserman Schultz was also chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee from 2011 to 2016, resigning last summer after WikiLeaks published stolen internal party emails. She said Awan never worked for the DNC. She said her concerns over the investigation were the reason she grilled Capitol Police Chief Matthew R. Verderosa about a laptop computer at a May 18th House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing. She said the laptop in question was issued by her office to Awan. He accidentally left it somewhere. A loss, Wasserman Schultz said, was reported to the Capitol Police. When the Capitol Police removed and recovered the laptop, the agency wanted to search its contents. She said she has agreed to allow the police to examine the laptop and wasn't attempting to hide anything. This was not my laptop. I have never seen that laptop. I don't know what's on the laptop, she said. She said her concern about the nature of the investigation was what prompted her to warn Verderosa at the hearing that he could face consequences. I was trying to get more information. I wanted to make sure that they were following the rules. Oh my goodness. It's like, oh, I don't have to follow the rules, but you have to. It's like, come on. sounds like some glamour witch, you know. Since Awan's arrest, Republicans have been questioning Wasserman Schultz, U.S. Representative Ron DeSantis, Republican from Ponte Verde Beach, said there's just a lot of behavior that is not easy to explain. Sounds like it's a likely candidate for Florida governor next year, but the issue could be significant security breach. Hunt says here, Ronald Romney McDaniel, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, was even more certain in a radio interview. There's a huge national security issue, McDaniel said. She's not cooperating. She's obstructing every chance that she can. There's a complaint on here, too, the case itself. There's a case on here about some PDF format, so it's 10 pages long, a criminal complaint. United States versus Imran Awan, complaint and arrest warrant. And of course, bank fraud, which is a violation of Title 18 U.S. Code 1344. So, interesting. So it's like 10 pages long. It will tell you everything on here. You can look it up yourself, so I'm not going to go too crazy over that. Wasserman Schultz said that much of the coverage of the case on conservative websites and social media is completely untrue. The right-wing media circus fringe has immediately focused not on this run-of-the-mill investigation, just reporting the facts, but jumped to egregious conclusions that they were trying to that they have ties to terrorists and they were stealing data, she said. I'll make this pretty clear with all sincerity. One thing about Pakistan, it does have a reputation of collaborators. Talk to other countries that are enemy to another nation. Get data. I'm not saying Awan and his family are doing it, but they're saying things possible. So I know it looks like the investigation is going to be real tight-lipped. They don't want any leaks or expectations. So Bob will continue on here. She started suggesting he was attempting to flee the country, emphasis on his ultimate destination, Pakistan, before his arrest on the bank fraud charge. The country is widely known as a battleground for Islamic terrorists. She said it is absurd to conclude he was trying to flee the country. He filed a form to take unpaid leave of absence and talked to Wasserman Schultz Chief Staff Tracy Poe about his departure and return date. He is from Pakistan. He's American, a naturalized American citizen. His children are natural-born citizens. His wife is a naturalized American citizen. And I mean, when you're trying to flee, you don't fill out a form with the employer and go on unpaid leave, she said. Awan's wife, Hindi Albi, was already in Pakistan, according to an FBI agent's affidavit filed in the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. in connection with the case, even though both had returned tickets. The agent said he didn't believe Albi intended to return to the U.S. The couple had wired $283,000 to Pakistan in January, the affidavit said. The wire transfer included $165,000 from home equity line of credit. Wasserman Schultz said the Awan case is getting so much attention from certain media outlets because they're attempting to distract people from the investigation whether President Donald Trump's campaign colluded to Russia to influence the 2016 election. She explained why Seth Rich is dead then, right? Any opportunity they can pull people's eyes and ears away from that they take. Yeah, really. It sounds like a used car salesman. Hi, I'm Ted Wasserman Schultz. I'll send you a lemon car. I say it's in great shape. I'm sorry, folks. I find this hilarious. It's like, look, you know why I can make fun of her? I attended one of her, her last town meeting in person at the Fort Lauderdale City Hall as a reference to the Affordable Care Act. And she could even sell a box of used rubbers in the corner of McDonald's, okay, along Broward Boulevard. That's how bad her rhetoric is. Very unattractive. So I'm going to continue on here until Thursday's 35-minute interview with the Sun Sentinel. I heard this off the Sunrise. Wasserman Schultz's comment about Awan have come through her communications director. She said she has been hiding from her constituents or the controversy. Wasserman Schultz said she spent a few days on vacation as Congress began its August recess at the end of the last week. On Wednesday night, she spoke at a Nova University event in Dania Beach. On Thursday morning, she spoke at an organized labor event in Hollywood. She's planned to have a heavy schedule of events in the district later in the month. I've been on vacation, she said. I am not hiding. I have no reason to hide. So hopefully we'll keep them posted. So I guess all you folks out there really got to start looking at this, really know what's happening here. That is pretty interesting right now. But based on past investigation, newspaper links, and of course even the chat from the Daily Caller got this thing going. And of course the murders and so forth. There's a lot of too damn obvious right now. Alright, and admitted on video with debate with Cordova, I think it is, about she attempts to get Hillary to be the nomination for president of the United States. So, well, she had to hide. She's saying, yes, I'm a freedom-hating scum queen. That's W. Wasserman Schultz. So I gotta find out what event she's going to. I should check these out. But it's very, absolutely disturbing, my friends. So. I do really get turned off by this. And even in the videos, she has integrity. Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. I just don't like being insulted. And can you explain why Congresswoman Wasserman shows that people who are more the progressive in the Democratic Party have less of contempt, a huge amount of contempt for you and your attributes? But I'm gonna, and can you explain why your freedom record is pathetic? You hate our Bill of Rights culture. You supported sanctions. You voted yes on sanctions on Iran, Russia, and North Korea. Plus, you co-sponsored H.R. 1697, which is entitled the Israel Anti-Boycott Act, which violates freedom of speech. Explain that to your constituents. Yes, you are a freedom hater, Congresswoman Schultz. And I live in South Florida. I can know firsthand by looking at your voting record. Unimpressive. With your little Republicans this, Republicans that. No, it's you. You need to take a look in the mirror. You claim to be Jewish by faith? I'm sorry, but based on your actions, you're just another jack-lantern, a Jew name only. That's not being anti-Semitic either. But I'm gonna hit this one pertaining to the case here. It is by the American Conservative, came out yesterday by Philip Giraldi, and this one's entitled "The Strange Case of Imran Awan." It says here on July 25th, Pakistani-American IT specialist Imran Awan was arrested at Dulles Airport for bank fraud while he was allegedly fleeing to Pakistan. Oh, excuse me. One moment here. The reports predictably produced some press coverage before the story died, yet the speed at which news vanished has prompted some observers to suggest that there might actually be something more to be the disappearance than the operation of the normal media reporting cycle. A number of conservative websites, including Blackwater, has been sounding the alarm over a possible cover-up that might even be linked to what we are now calling Russiagate. To be sure, the tale is a strange one with plenty of unsavory links. 37-year-old Awan and and as well as his wife and two brothers, Abid and Jamal, worked as IT administrators for nearly 30 congressmen, all Democrats, including Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, former Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They did not have security clearances, and it is not even certain that they were in any way checked out before being hired. At one point, they brought into the house as a colleague one Raul Abbas, someone to whom they owed money, who might have no qualifications at all to work IT. Abbas wound up working for the office of Representative Patrick Murphy, who was at the time a member of the House Intelligence Committee, as well as for Representative Theo Deutsch. Really? He was paid $250,000. The process of granting security clearances to congressional staff is not exactly transparent, but it is not unlike clearances for other government agencies. The office seeking the clearance for a staff member must put in a request. Some kind of investigation follows, and the applicant must sign a non-closure agreement before the authorization is granted. Sometimes Congress pushes the process by demanding that its staff have access above and beyond the normal need to know. In March 2016, for example, 8 Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee requested that their staff be given access to top security sensitive compartment information, SCI. It is known if the Awans who were working for several committee members would have been involved, but BuzzFeed is in the initial reporting on the investigation of the Awan family repeated the concerns of the congressmen that the suspects might have access to the House of Representatives' entire computer network. The Awans billed Congress more than $4 million between 2004 and 2016, a sum that had been reported to be 3 or 4 times higher than the norm for government contractor IT specialists performing similar work. The considerable level of overbilling has not been explained by the congressmen involved. Despite all that income, Imran Awan declared bankruptcy in 2010, claiming losses of $1 million on a car business that he owned in Fall Church, Virginia. The business was named Cars International A, abbreviated on the business card as CIA. As of February 2016, the Awans came under suspicion for having set up an operation to steal and refund government-owned computer equipment. It was also believed that they had somehow obtained access to the House of Representatives computer database, as well as other information in the internal computer system that they were not normally authorized to work as part of their duties. The Capitol Hill Police began an investigation, quietly alerted the congressman involved there might be a problem. Most stopped by employing their Awan family, but Wasserman Schultz kept Imran on the payroll to the day after he was actually arrested. Some of those defending Awan, to include Wasserman Schultz and the family lawyer, have insisted that he and his family were victims of an anti-Muslim right-wing smear job, though there is no actual evidence to suggest that is the case. They also claim that the bank fraud, in which he obtained a home equity loan for $165,000 from a congressional federal credit union based on a house that he owned and claimed to live in Wharton, Virginia, was largely a misunderstanding. It was described by his lawyer, Chris Gowen, a Clinton family confidant, as something that was extremely minor. It turned out to be that there was a tenant in the house, an ex-Marine and his naval officer wife, who were very suspicious about a large quantity of what appeared to be government-sourced computer equipment and supplies, all material that had been left behind by the Awans. They contacted the FBI, which discovered the hard drives that appear to have been deliberately destroyed. The FBI is certainly interested in the theft of government computers, but is also looking into the possibility that Awans were using their ability to access and possibly exploit sensitive information stored in the House of Representatives computer network, as well as through Wasserman Schultz's iPad, which Imran had access and connected to the Democratic National Committee server. Hold on here, folks. I will continue on here. As Imran Awan is also a dual national. Born in Pakistan, the possibility of espionage also had to be considered. The charge that Awan was actually arrested on bank fraud was an easy way to hold him, as an aspect of his activities was well documented. It allows other more serious investigations to continue. So the argument that Imran Awan is only being held on a minor matter is not necessarily correct. Awan's wired the credit union money to Pakistan as part of a $283 transfer that was made in January. His wife, Hina Alvi, also left the U.S. 2 months later. 2 months later? She was searched by customs officer and was determined that she was carrying $12,000 in cash. She also had with their 3 children and numerous boxes containing household goods and clothing. It was clear that she did not intend to come back, but there had been no explanation why she was even allowed to leave, since carrying more than $10,000 out of the country without reporting it is a felony. As Imran Awan reportedly has access to Wasserman Schultz's iPad, he presumably also had access to the incriminating Hillary Clinton emails. He also used a laptop in her office that was, according to investigators, concealed in an unused crevice in the Rayburn House office building. Is being examined by police, but Wasserman Schultz tried strenuously to recover it before it could be looked at. She pressured the chief of Capitol Police, Matthew Verderosa, to return it, threatening him by saying you should expect that there will be consequences. And there's a video on that too. It's been went viral. You don't make these threats. Okay, that's totally absurd. Biggest mistake. Say you never threaten. It's like suffer consequences, like saying threaten someone to sue them. Biggest mistake. You never ever used it. Okay. There is another connection of Imran Awan that goes back to the circle around prominent neoconservatives Paul Wolfowitz during the Iraq War. In late 2002 and early 2003, Wolfowitz regularly met secretly with a group of Iraqi experts who resided in the Washington area and were opponents of the Saddam Hussein regime. The Iraqis had not been in their country of birth for many years, but they claimed to have regular contacts with well-informed family members and political allies. The Iraqi advisors provided Wolfowitz with now a familiar refrain, i.e. that Iraqi people would rise up to support invading Americans and overthrow the hated Saddam. They would greet their liberators and bouquets of flowers, and shouts of joy. Iraqis were headed by one Dr. Ali Al-Alta, born in Baghdad to Iranian parents in 1963, a 1989 graduate of the American University of Beirut Faculty of Medicine. He subsequently emigrated to the United States to set up a practice in internal medicine in Greenbelt, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. Al-Alta eventually expanded his business to include 9 practices that he wholly and partly owned in Virginia and Maryland, but he eventually lost his license due to questionable building practices as well as unprofessional conduct due to having sex with patients. Al-Alta was investigated by the FBI and eventually indicted for large-scale healthcare fraud in 2008-2009. This included charging insurance companies more than $2.3 million for services their patients did not actually receive, with many of the false claims using names of diplomats and employees enrolled in a group plan at the Egyptian embassy in Washington. In one case, the doctors claimed an embassy employee visited 3 of their clinics every 26 days between May 2007 and August 2008 to have the same testing done each time. The insurance company paid the doctors $55,000 for more than 400 non-existent procedures for one patient alone. Al-Alta fled the United States after indictment to avoid arrest and imprisonment and is now considered a fugitive from justice. Late in 2012, he was observed in Beirut, Lebanon, conversing with a Hezbollah official. Al-Alta is of interest in this case because he appears to have been a friend of Imran Awan and also loaned him $100,000, which was never repaid. The FBI is currently looking into any possible espionage involving the 2 men, as Awan and his associates clearly had access to classified information while working in the House of Representatives. Imran Awan case is certainly of considerable interest, not only for what the investigation eventually turns up but also for what it reveals about how things work in Congress. One might well ask how foreign-born IT specialists are selected and vetted prior to being significantly overpaid and allowed to work on computers in congressional offices, and the ability of those same individuals to keep working after the relevant congressmen have been warned that the employee was under investigation has to be explained beyond Wasserman Schultz's comment that Awan had not committed any crime. And how does bankrupt Imran Awan wind up with a high-priced lawyer to defend him who was associated with the Clintons? Finally, there are lingering concerns about the unfortunately well-established Russiagate narrative. Did Russians really hack into the DNC, or some kind of inside job carried about by someone after you worked for Debbie Wasserman Schultz? For reasons that have yet to be determined, possibly to include espionage, there are many questions and so far few answers. Something to really look at, my friends. And this is why when I hear the excuse, it's a distraction, so because the whole Trump-Russia thing, you just give her damn muzzle as far as I'm concerned. So there's a lot of possible foul play, and even Stephen Molyneux said this is bigger than Watergate. And what I've examined, it makes Watergate a spit in the bucket. And you know what? The Russiagate, the Trump-Russiagate connection, flush it. Is it the feces is in the toilet, floating, flush it. Worthless, null and void, monopoly money rhetoric. So that's how I look at this. A lot, and remember, federal government, they investigate. It takes time, doesn't happen overnight. I don't know why Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I don't have nothing to hide. So I guess all you folks out there, you gotta find out when's her next event. Go there, just protest her, go dumb down Debbie, dumb down Debbie, dumb down Debbie. A freedom-hating Gino. You're gonna have the high-pitched voice of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. A freedom-hating Gino. Just to get her wound up, because you know what, she deserves everything thrown at her because of her anti-freedom practices and possibly abetting and comforting the enemy. Possibly. Not because of his faith, but actions. Big difference, Deborah. Big difference. And this is interesting here on the Freedom Index by NewAmerican.com, which is associated with John Birch Society. However, you can always look at her voting record to verify, and they're accurate in these areas. And according to them, the culminated Freedom Index scores for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, 14%. Woo! That's right, 14%. So the 86% is tyranny, tyrannical, unconstitutional bills she voted on because she believes the federal government is smarter than everybody else. Hey, you can call her up on that, 202-225-7931. You know, she has offices around South Florida. Go in the distance, so go down there and go, Debbie, how's it feel being less patriotic than Benedict Arnold? I gotta say this, because like I said before, I keep tracks of these people's voting records, and I'm not afraid of calling them out. Hey, if you check my last show, revised version, I criticized Jeff Sessions on trying to push for more civil asset forfeiture programming platform. Absolutely. So I'm not being partisan about, I'm not Republican or not just right-wing thing. No, Dad, I'm a freedom of sovereign thinker. So don't even waste your breath if you're going to use this stupid half-acidine comments, because it's null and void in my realm and many others like it as well, including a lot of folks I know who are Bernie Sanders supporters and progressives. You have a great amount of enemies that are registered Democrats. All right, you ought to be ashamed of yourself for being incompetent on not holding your oath of office. Plus, you need to step down, turn yourself in, repent for your stupidity. Let's see how many people may forgive you on that. Because I can say this, you've hurt a lot of people. And I know there's a lot of suspicions going on with murders of attorneys. The one that filed a lawsuit died in the bathroom in Miami. And Seth Rich and a few others. Yeah. Like I said, it's got to be, you're innocent to proven guilty. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But one thing about the federal government, they're not going to play patty cake in a case like this. Falcon and Snowman on steroids. This makes Watergate spit in the bucket. I know I'm repeating myself, folks. So don't use this Trump-Russia connection, because you know what? It's shredded into oblivion. And that's all I have to say about you and your tyrannical qualities. I feel sorry. I feel bad for her children. She's a mother of 3. And that's, feel bad for the most. You should have thought about that, Debbie, of your kids. Trying to tarnish people's freedoms and reputation and use the same old used car salesman rhetoric. Those are the ones I think about. See, 3 children. If anything happens to you through the judicial process, and I hope it's all done in good faith, if you do get prosecuted, indicted through the court of law, and be impeached honorably by the ones that call you out. That's it. I'm not here to damn you, wish you any ill. I know they talk about you have issues on your breast cancer. I will never include that on my opposition towards your activities. And that is it on that part. So folks, I will be right back, so stay tuned. Alright, just I'll take a quick breather here. Thank you for your patience. And this one here came out yesterday from the Air Force Times. It's entitled Blackwater Founder Wants to Boost the Afghan Air War with His Private Air Force. Okay, it's by Sean Snow and Mackenzie Wolf. Came out yesterday. Afghan National Air Corps L-39 Albatross jets take off in a formation practice for an aerial parade for Afghan National Day in Kabul. The head of a private security firm, formerly known as Blackwater, wants to provide private air force to supplement the Afghan fledgling fleet. Eric Prince, the former CEO of the private military company known as Blackwater, wants to step up the Afghan war with a private air force capable of intelligence collection and close air support, according to a recent proposal submitted to the Afghan government. According to his senior Afghan military official, Prince has submitted a business proposal offering a turnkey composite air wing to help the fledgling Afghan Air Force in its fight against Taliban and other militant groups. The development comes as the White House is considered a plan to draw down the U.S. involvement in Afghanistan and place the ensuing power vacuum with contractors. Pentagon officials are skeptical of that plan. Moreover, a senior Afghan defense official told Military Times that U.S. Army General John Nicholson, the commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, has refused to meet with Prince regarding the contractor plan. Military Times has reached out to the U.S. military officials in Afghanistan for a comment on Nicholson's meeting or lack thereof with Prince, and have yet to receive a reply. The proposal submitted to the Afghan government in March boasts an impressive array of combat aircraft for a private company. The aircraft offered in the proposal includes fixed-wing planes, attack helicopters, and drones capable of providing close air support to maneuvering ground forces, according to a copy of the proposal obtained by the Military Times. The proposal promises to provide high-speed response, close air support, and the entire country can be responded to in under 1 hour. The proposal states that weapons release decisions were still made by Afghans. The airframe also outfitted with equipment to provide intelligence collection that includes imagery intelligence, signal intelligence, and communications intelligence. The aircraft would be operated by private company employees. One tool in particular, says here, one tool in particular as an iPhone application called SafeStrike. SafeStrike is a deconfliction tool for air traffic controllers to safely and accurately call precision airstrikes or direct in-fire according to the proposal. The proposal also promises to conduct medical evacuation and combat situations with ex-military medics and door gunners, according to a copy of the proposal. The Afghan Air Force is in the first stage of the transition from its old fleet of Russian Mi-17 transport helicopters to U.S. UH-60A model Blackhawks, a development Nicholson deemed as necessary to help break the stalemate in Afghanistan. However, those helicopters will be arriving in Afghanistan for almost 2 years, and training isn't expected to begin until later this fall. With battlefield casualties rising and the continued ceasing of territory between Afghan and Taliban control, Prince's proposal seeks to provide an interim private air force while the Afghan Air Force reaches full operational capability. However, not everyone is on board with the plan. Ronald Newman, the ambassador to Afghanistan from 2005 to 2007, and now the president of the American Academy of Diplomacy, said Afghanistan won't accept a private contractor force. Yes, you hear dog in the cafe. Don't worry about it. President Ghani has told me he won't accept it. Newman told Military Times in an interview, Afghans will never accept this. Newman also questioned the legality and cost of using the private contractor force compared to using U.S. military assets. It cannot be cheaper, he said. The idea that it's somehow cheaper is ridiculous. Any force is going to have the same support and logistical requirements. Contractor forces also not have the same legal protections under international law, Newman said. Nevertheless, this isn't Eric Prince's first rodeo. The former Blackwater CEO sparked controversy a decade ago when his firm provided hundreds of millions of dollars of security and support services to the U.S. government in Iraq. Yeah, good movie to check out. It's called Iraq for Sale. I recommend that, folks. More recently, Prince has been using his private air force all over the globe to include Somalia, Iraq, and South Sudan. Prince also reportedly has close ties to the Trump administration. He is a brother of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and was reportedly tapped to create a black channel line of communication with the Russian government during the Trump transition. Interesting, huh? Interesting claim there. But Betsy DeVos. Can we say possible conflict of interest? Prince's firm is now called the Frontier Service Group. Is based in Hong Kong. Through an affiliated known as EP Aviation, Prince operates his own personal air force. In Central Africa, the fight against the Lord's Resistance Army is bolstered by Prince's air power. Helicopters registered to EP Aviation having been seen transporting U.S. Special Forces troops in the Central African region, per a Daily Beast report. The company named on the proposal to the Afghan government, Lancaster 6, is already operating some of its craft in Afghanistan, providing air mobility, troop transport, and parachute airdrop support for supplies and cargo. It is unclear precisely what Prince's current role is with Lancaster 6, which is based in Dubai. The Afghan military official said Prince personally presented the Lancaster 6 proposal to Afghan officials. The current CEO of Lancaster 6, according to personal LinkedIn profile, is the former director of operations and director of aviation for Prince's Frontier Service Group, Christian Durant. Durant was recruited by Eric Prince to build his private air force, according to a report by The Intercept. Frontier Service Group and Lancaster 6 did not respond to Military Times' request for comment. Afghan Air Force, since taking over responsibility for security of Afghanistan in 2015, have borne the burden of the sacrifice of dozens of lives lost every day, an Afghan defense official told the Military Times. Aviation is an important part of the fight against terrorism, the official said. We hope that Afghan security forces are provided with proper, modern, and sophisticated aircrafts. Ultimately, these are the Afghan forces who will continue to make sure that the region is protected from terrorists gaining a foothold in the long run. A Pentagon spokesman declined to comment specifically on the contractor proposal from Prince. The Secretary listens to many different viewpoints in the formulation of military plans, says Dana W. White, A spokeswoman for the Defense Security Secretary James Mattis. Right now, his focus remains on working with his fellow cabinet members and the White House to complete a national strategy for South Asia. She said any decisions he makes on troop levels or other support to Afghanistan will be support of that strategy. According to the proposal, the contract to air support will continue until Afghans stop losing territory through 2017 to 2018 and Afghan forces begin to retake back ground lost to the Taliban. There are currently about 8,500 troops in Afghanistan, down from a peak of about 100,000 in 2011. The U.S. provides close air support for Afghan ground forces in operations against the Taliban and Islamic State groups faction in Afghanistan. So, and let me see here. Okay, that's like Medal of Honor. Okay, that's no big deal. Yeah, very interesting stuff there. So they're just more like considered mercenaries. That's all they are, and they do have to question that. And it's been going on. Mercenary has been going on for a very long time. Private mercenaries. So that's the name of the game. I'll say this: in one area, we gotta bring our troops home, but that whole thing with that frontier group, very touchy. And if the Afghan people the government don't like it, scrap it. Don't need them. But I think the people in Afghanistan need to start being more self-reliant instead of using the United States as a foothold or financial supporter, asset supporter on having the troops over there and all that. Because I'm not really too crazy on what's going on over there. Plus, there's some benefits. But the poppy seeds and so forth. And I don't know if they would like to have Mr. Prince get involved in those fields, if you know what I'm saying. So it's just an interesting claim, and I say that respectfully. Well, that's how it goes, and we're just gonna wait and see what the Afghan government has to say about that. All right, cool. Okay, next one here is from publicintegrity.org, and it came out today. This was entitled "Comeback for Legalized Money Laundering in Party Politics." It is by Carrie Levine. And it says here, working the system, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton took great advantage of this later day soft money system as they barrel toward election day. The Center for Public Integrity's review shows. When, for example, the Clintons' main joint fundraising committee received a contribution, it divvied the money up among Clinton's campaign committee, the National Democratic Committee, and a gaggle of state-level Democratic Party committees. State Democratic parties then often shifted the money they received from the Clintons' joint fundraising committee right to the Democratic National Committee, allowing the National Committee to pocket significantly more cash than federal contribution limits would appear to allow. Republicans did the same, as even higher percentage of the time. Republican state primaries shifted more than 90% of the dollars they received from the Trump Victory Committee to the Republican National Committee. And the post-McChonian world, this fundraising tactic has vaulted joint fundraising committees out of obscurity and enshrined them as prominent players in federal politics. During the 2016 election cycle, for example, Clinton's joint fundraising committee took in over $300 million more than Barack Obama did during the 2008 election cycle when he was a Democratic nominee. The new reality has also pushed national parties to court even more assertively than before. A small cohort of donors who can write them huge checks. During the 2016 election cycle, at least 1,700 donors each spread $127,000 or more among federal candidates, party committees, and political action committees. The Center for Public Integrity's analyst of campaign finance data for the Center for Responsive Politics found the $127,000 figure adjusted to current dollars is significant because it represents the so-called aggregate cap or limit on the amount donors could give all federal candidates. political parties and political action committees combined that was struck down by McCutcheon. Combined, that same universe of mega donors injected more than $500 million into federal level elections in 2016, and slightly more than half of that money was in contributions that would not have been legally permitted before the McCutcheon versus FEC decision, when the aggregate caps were still in place. Some donors in previous cycles exceed the limit despite the law, but the change has funneled hundreds of millions of additional dollars into federal elections, much of it into the party coffers. During the 2012 presidential election cycle, only about $16 million went over the limits. This total includes contributions to new accounts Congress created for the parties in December 2014 after the McCutcheon versus FEC decision. Those accounts can accept six-figure contributions, but the money is then earmarked for restricted purposes such as convention costs or recount expenses. The RNC did not respond to a request for comment. The DNC complied with all FEC requirements, says spokesman Michael Tyler. But in May 2016, email exchange among top Democratic Party officials and their lawyers released by WikiLeaks, they acknowledged that any formal agreement between state parties and the National Party to transfer the money would raise serious legal questions for the DNC. The email was prompted by media coverage of some transfers. Instead, the Democrats said the party should stress there is definitely no formal agreement or obligation requiring the transfers, even though in practice state parties, the DNC and the Clinton campaign would move money where it would be most useful. How it works: contributions to Trump's campaign machine by Julia Holt, chairwoman of the NBA's San Antonio Spurs, show how the nation's new soft money system works and how it makes a mockery of the campaign finance law. Holt wrote checks totaling $499,400 in 2016 to the Trump Victory Committee, Trump's main joint fundraising committee benefiting his presidential campaign, and Republicans were at large of Holtz's contribution. Interesting there, you know, and Trump's own campaign received $5,400, the legal maximum for a presidential candidate. The Republican National Committee, meanwhile, received $284,000 split among his general account and several restricted accounts that fund specific projects such as national conventions or re-election recounts. Finally, 20 state Republican parties reported receiving $10,000 each from Holt via her original contribution to Trump's joint fundraising committee. But all of these 20 state parties, 18 of them held the money only briefly before transferring it to the NRC. The state parties did this by exploiting the law that allows them to transfer unlimited amounts of money to their national party committee cousins. In the end, transfers from the state parties meant the RNC pulled an additional $180,000 from Holt. Holt didn't respond to an inquiry from the Center for Public Integrity about her contributions and how they were used. Well, very interesting there, folks. And remember, these so-called campaign finance laws, you always got to read the fine print and the flaws of it. This is how this occurred. Okay, can't do it here, but we go over there. So remember, it's all these bills and laws is written by human beings. You can always analyze it and see where the gaps are and take advantage of it and say it's legit. Well, I'm not surprised at all, my friends. This is part of the mainstream political machine. Or the most money wins, but one thing we know for sure, this is more being leaked and being more exposed. There's another example why political parties are dangerous to the United States of America, according to George Washington's farewell address. That's for the first-time listeners that never may have heard me before. Enough of you guys. know where I'm coming from. So if I repeat myself, nothing personal. So always vote for your conscience. You put their feet to the fire. Expect this every time, regardless if they're a Democrat or a Republican. Okay? All right, finally, this came out by Mr. Mike Meharry. I always like reading stuff from the 10th Amendment Center. And if I'm correct, this came out yesterday. Yeah, it came out yesterday. This was entitled Status Report. States Take on Fed's Money Monopoly. And as it reads here, states continue to pass measures that chip away at the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money by facilitating and encouraging the use of gold and silver. On July 25th, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper signed a bill into law exempting the sale or purchase of gold and silver from state sales taxes. The new law removes an important roadblock in the way of their everyday use as money, taking the first step toward breaking the Federal Reserve's monopoly. With the governor's signature, the law went into effect retroactively to July 1st, 2017. A month later, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards signed a similar bill into law that went into immediate effect. While repealing state sales taxes on precious metals may seem like a relatively small step, it removes one barrier to owning gold and silver and eliminates a penalty on use of stolen money. Fantastic, I like this. A new Arizona law that goes into effect August 9th eliminates states' capital gain tax on gold and silver specie, removing another barrier. Representative Mark Fitchum, Republican from Tucson, sponsored HB 2014. Legislation eliminates state capital gains taxes on income derived from the exchange of one kind of legal tender for another kind of legal tender. The bill defines legal tender as a medium of exchange, including specie that is authorized by the United States Constitution or Congress for the payment of debts, public charges, taxes, and dues. Specie means coins having precious metal content. In effect, passage of HB 2014 to legalize the Constitution by treating gold and silver as specie as money. Imagine if you ask a grocery store clerk to break your $5 bill and he charged you a 35-cent tax. Silly, right? After all, you were only exchanging one form of money to another. Essentially, this is what taxing the sale of gold and a silver. As Ron Paul said during the testimony in favor of the Arizona bill, we ought not to tax money, and that's a good idea. It makes no sense to tax money. Of course, this is all good news for gold and silver dealers and investors, but it has much broader implications. These bills effectively remove taxes from the exchange of one kind of legal tender or another kind of legal tender. After all, gold and silver are money. In other words, an individual buying gold or silver bullion or utilizing gold and silver in a transaction will no longer be subject to state taxes on the exchange. This should encourage and facilitate the use of gold and silver in everyday transactions. Paul said he considered the Arizona bill to be very important because it would also serve as an educational effort for other states, but it will also have a practical effect. Passage of HB 2014 in Arizona and efforts in other states to eliminate sales tax mark an important first step toward currency competition. If sound money gains a foothold in the marketplace against the Federal Reserve notes, people will be able to choose the time-tested stability of gold and silver over the central bank's rapidly depreciating paper currency. The freedom of choice expanded by repealing gold and silver taxes allows residents to secure their purchasing power of their money. On the another front in the war against the Fed, the tax bullion depository took a major step closer to reality in June when officials formally announced the private vendor that will run the facility. The creation of the state bullion depository in Texas represents a power shift away from the federal government to the state, and it provides a blueprint that could ultimately end the Fed. I remember addressing this in my past podcast around that time, June 2015. Governor Greg Abbott signed legislation creating the state gold bullion and precious metal depository in June of 2015. The facility will not only provide secure place for individuals, businesses, cities, counties, government agencies, and even other countries to store gold and silver, gold and other precious metal. The law also contains a mechanism to facilitate the everyday use of gold and silver in business transactions. In short, a person will be able to deposit a gold or silver and and pay other people through electronic means or checks in sound money. People are already using gold and silver in everyday transactions in Utah, where the United Precious Metal Association set up the state's first gold bank. It offers publicly available accounts denominated in gold and silver dollars in Utah. According to the UMPMA, in the past year it was grown 700% in assets under management and made up 2% of the market for the gold and silver coins. You don't even have to live in Utah to open an account, and an account holder can conduct business in gold and silver with any other account holder across the country. These bullion banks, whatever state-run or private, can seriously undermine the Fed's monopoly on money. They allow for the easy transfer of physical precious metals, meaning everyday people can easily transact business for using gold and silver. The option to use sound money can force rapidly depreciating the Federal Reserve notes out of the marketplace. Constitutional tender expert Professor William Green said when people in multiple states actually start using gold and silver instead of Federal Reserve notes, it will effectively nullify the Federal Reserve and end the federal government's monopoly on money. Over time, as residents of the state use both Federal Reserve notes and silver and gold coins, the fact that the coins hold their value for more than Federal Reserve notes do will lead to a reverse Gresham's law effect, where good money, gold and silver coins, will drive out bad money, Federal Reserve notes. As this happens, a cascade of events can begin to occur, including the flow of real wealth toward the state's treasury and influx of banking business from outside of the state. As people in other states carry out their desire to bank with sound money, an eventual outcry against the use of Federal Reserve notes for any transactions. During the last legislative session, Utah State Representative Ken Ivory, Republican from West Jordan, introduced a bill to facilitate the operation of gold banks, such as UMPMA. The bill didn't advance this session, but Ivory set the stage to push the issue further next year. Ideally, Utah will pass the bill next session and other states will follow suit. The explosion effort to encourage sound money in the states goes beyond mere monetary policy and finances. It's more broadly about liberty. During the event after this Senate committee testimony in Arizona, Ron Paul pointed out that it's really about the size of scope of government. If you're for less government, you want sound money. The people who want big government, they don't want sound money. They want to deceive you and commit fraud. They want to print money. They want a monopoly. They want to get you conditioned, as our schools have conditioned us to the point where deficits don't matter. These state efforts open the door for a serious pushback against the Fed and its monopoly on money, but state action alone won't accomplish anything. Ultimately, we will be up to everyday Americans to take advantage of these state laws and actually start using gold and silver when possible. It is a perfect opportunity to engage in acts of individual nullification. Without individual action, the politics really won't matter. The bottom line is up to us, and he is absolutely correct. This is exciting, folks. All the crazy stuff is happening around the world and so forth, but this stuff here to say, don't give up the fight, okay? This is fantastic, and I am startled and happy. I'm very happy this is occurring, because things take time, my friends. When you start studying the history of central banks, fiat money, and the Federal Reserve, then you'll be like, hey, you need us more, we need you. We're not your peasants. We will deprecate on Alexander Hamilton's legacy, controlling us like parasites and minions, and we can wipe our butts on the Communist Manifesto. And Karl Marx said central banking is the key of centralizing government. Okay, so you know what? They can piss on their legacies, plain and simple. Support the cause. Try to purchase gold and silver as sound money. Even individuals like myself gotta do it as well. Just to give you a heads up, because hey, I have my imperfections too. We're all human beings. We're all been swindled, try to be programmed, but we can do this under our personal freedoms. Let the banksters know. You need us more, we need you. You guys are nothing. So I'm very happy. A lot of these people in the States are making it a reality. And you know what? Give them a thumbs up and a little round of applause. Yeah, we'll say that in good faith, right? Absolutely. So, hey. And you know what? That is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me some information that may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum, which many of you have done, and I do thank you in the bottom of my heart. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, FutureNet.club, or Patreon.com/LokiLuck3 with 3 eyes if you want to be a sponsor, patron, supporter, and all that. I'm looking at other areas as well, just security reasons. All right. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or you encrypted ones, LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. I'll repeat it one more time. LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. Woo, okay, my friends, that is all for now. Once again, thank you for your time, but always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.